Hi, I'm Emily and this is Made on Mill. When I'm filming this, it's the beginning of July and we live in a zone 5, so this is the time of year when our gardens really start taking off and filling in. Since I've been enjoying the garden so much, I wanted to spend some more time in it. So my sister's birthday was coming up and I thought this was the perfect opportunity to host a garden party. In this video, I'll be showing how I get ready for the party as well as sharing a tutorial on how to make crocheted flower napkin rings. We've been in our house for 4 years now, and so our gardens have been a work in progress. This year I was able to purchase some plants that are native to our area, and so that is what we're going to fill this space with. My Opa and I made this when I was about 5 years old with some leftover concrete and an old frying pan. So those are my hands when I was 5. If you've watched a few of my videos, you know that I like to find most of my material secondhand. So on a recent thrift trip, I was able to find some quilting cotton at the thrift store, and so I washed it and now I'm drying it on the line so that I can sew them into napkins. We use our clothesline from, I would say, April to October. I absolutely love it and it was really simple to put up. I find that line drawing materials that I've purchased secondhand really helps to deodorize them. I will be sharing a separate video where I sew the napkins. So I was visiting my Oma a couple weeks ago and she showed me these napkin rings, and actually her grandmother made them, so they're really old. They're over 100 years old, and so they're little pansies, I believe, with the 2 petals up here and 3 petals at the bottom and the ring that goes around the back there. So I thought I would make my own flower napkin rings or napkin holders and crochet them. So this is where the inspiration came from. So I've modernized it a little bit, and this is what they look like. So it's just a simple white flower, and I attached the ring along the bottom here between 2 petals so that you could sit it with the center petal facing upwards. I had this yarn in my stash. It's a cotton thread and it's size 3, 100% cotton. And I used a 2.5mm crochet hook. We will start by creating a magic ring. You don't need very long tails for this, so yeah, I would just keep it short, and then we'll chain 1. Okay, now we will work 5 single crochets in the ring. So once your 5 single crochets are made, you can tighten up that ring. Move that tail out of the way. Now you'll find that first single crochet that you made and work a slip stitch into it. And that is round 1. Now we will chain 2, and working in that same single crochet that we slip stitched into, we will work a puff stitch. So how this is done is bring your yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook, whoops, and pull up a loop. The tail got in the way there. So we did 3 inserts, and now we should have 7 loops on our hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's how you know that it's complete. Then you will yarn over and pull through all 7 loops. Now we are not going to chain 1 here, but rather jump into another puff stitch in that same single crochet space. Yarn over, insert hook, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert hook, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert hook, oops, and pull up a loop. Check that we have 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now you will yarn over and finish that puff stitch. Now you will chain 1 and then work 2 puff stitches in each stitch across. So you'll have 4 single crochets remaining, which means you'll work 8 more puff stitches. So we'll work on that for the second space here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Pull through all 7 loops and then repeat that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Pull up a loop. Now you will chain 1. Okay, so work 2 puff stitches in the remaining 3 single crochets, and I'll meet you when we get to the end. So I have just worked that final puff stitch and I will chain 1. Then we will work over here and join them. So you can join on top of that chain 2 space or on top of the puff stitch there. It doesn't matter. Okay, now they're joined. So you should have a total of 10 puff stitches, 2 being worked in each stitch across. Now we will slip stitch over to this chain 1 space that is between the second and third puff stitch. So how I do this is I'll just slip stitch into that top of that puff stitch there, and then just go and work in that chain space. Okay, now that we have slip stitched into this chain space here, we will chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then you will find the next chain space. So you skip 2 puff stitches and work a slip stitch into that chain space. Again, 1, 2, 3 chains and slip stitch into that chain 1 space. 1, 2, 3 and slip stitch. 1, 2, 3 and slip stitch. Okay, so we have worked 1, 2, 3, 4 chain 3 series. Now we will chain 3 again, so our final chain, and work our slip stitch into that chain 1 space. All right, so since we had 5 clusters of 2 puff stitches, a chain 3 length was worked over 2 puff stitches. So you should have 5 chain 3 lengths. Now we will slip stitch into this chain 3 space for the next round. And then we'll start by working a chain 2 to bring us up to the height that we need. Okay, so now we will work those same puff stitches, but you will work 3 into each chain 3 space. So 1, first puff stitch, now our second puff stitch, and our third puff stitch. Okay, so once you've completed that, those 3 puff stitches, you will chain 1. Now, because we chained 2 to get to our height here, we made that chain 1 when we finished our final puff stitch. Now we will go along the side here and we will find 2 of our loops to slip stitch into. So I typically like to find a loop at the front and the back, and usually one's at the edge there. And we'll slip stitch into that, and then you will slip stitch into the chain 1 space from the 2 previous rows. So you go down here, you find your puff stitches from your second round, and you'll find that space in between them where you worked that chain 1. Last round we worked a slip stitch there. Now you will work a slip stitch again, just working on top of the slip stitch from the previous row. Then you go over to your chain 3 space and slip stitch. Okay, again, chain 2, 1, 2, then we work 3 puff stitches. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1, then we work that slip stitch along the side here, and you will find that chain 1 space from 2 previous rounds where you worked your slip stitch into last round, and you will slip stitch in that chain 1 space kind of around your previous slip stitch. Okay, so you will repeat that around, and I will meet you at the end. So I have worked my final 3 puff stitches. I've chained 1 and worked that slip stitch in the side loops there. Now I will work a slip stitch in that chain 1 space. Now at this point the flower is done, but we are not going to fasten off because we are going to immediately make the ring that sits on the back of it. So we will start by chaining 14. Now you want to keep your chain straight, and you will flip your work so you're looking at the reverse side here. Now for mine, I chose to skip 2 petals and then join the ring over here. And this way, when I put this on the napkin, because it is 5 petals, this means that when I put it on the napkin, I will have 1 centered at the top. Now, if you were to attach your ring here directly across, then your napkin would sit kind of like this. Okay, and so nothing would be at the top or the bottom, and it wouldn't be symmetrical, so I'll leave that up to you. Now this means it isn't sitting perfectly centered in the ring here, but it holds up just fine on napkins. And then you can kind of like curl this up if you wanted, or push it over. Okay, so we've chained that 14. Now we will skip 2 puff stitches, like I said, making sure your chain is not twisted. And you will go and find that chain 1 space here between those initial puff stitches. And then remember we worked 2 slip stitches into that space. So you will just go in there and try to find at least 2 loops, if not more, that you can insert your hook around. Okay, make sure you still have some like loops and yarns on the other side, and then you will simply go in, and then you will work a slip stitch. Right, now we will chain 1, and you will work back along this chain here, working single crochets till you get to the other side. So I have worked that ring here. Now I'm back to the other side, and I will try to grab anywhere really a couple loops of yarn to work another slip stitch so that this is really secure. Okay, now we can fasten off and weave in our ends. Okay, so I'll do that off camera, but that's how it's looking. Very quickly, I want to mention that these are completely machine washable. I would suggest that you either put them in like a sock or a pillowcase so that they don't get lost in your machine. Or if you have one of those wash bags, that's also a great option. Now, these could totally be blocked if you want them to be like really crisp and flat. I think that would look really nice. If you are going to block them and you are gifting them to someone, that you let them know how to re-block them if they are going to wash them. Really simply, you could just say, hey, wash them, and then let them dry flat and maybe put a weight on it for say an hour, and then let them dry fully again after that. I made this bunting during the pandemic and we've used it for tons of parties since. I have an upcoming quilt project hopefully in 2025, and with the leftover material I'll make a bunting and hopefully share a tutorial for it. Like many things in our home, I got this table from my Oma's. It used to be at my Oma and Opa's house, and I found this white tablecloth at a thrift store this past winter. So I'm just adjusting the length of it so it fits this table better. This tablecloth was another gift from my Oma. I think either her mother or grandmother hand embroidered it. I think it's so beautiful. When my husband and I got married in our living room, we used this for our table setting. Up until recently, I was still using my dishes from university. They had seen better days, so again, my Oma offered us her dishes, and that's what I'm using here. The flatware also used to be my Oma and Opa's. My parents received these wine glasses as a wedding gift. As you can clearly see, I am a true lover of secondhand items, whether I find them thrifting or they're passed down to me. As I mentioned earlier, I will have a full tutorial coming out later this year showing you how I made these napkins using quilting cotton scraps. I just love how these flower napkin rings turned out. I'm going to be making a lot more. If you wanted to see what I gifted my sister for her birthday, you could head over to my Instagram, which is at Made on Mill. I found some really beautiful fabric pieces at the thrift store and was able to make them into gorgeous pillows for her. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it helpful or inspiring, I would really appreciate if you could give this video a like, share it, or subscribe. In my next video, I will be sharing gifts from the garden.